Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you all. I've come all the way from sunny Madrid to super sunny Tel Aviv. You guys win. And I've come here to an e-commerce summit to talk to you about the most important thing in life, the one and only, the power that truly rules the world. And it's not data this time. It's actually love. We are going to talk in an e-commerce summit about love. And how come a YouTuber comes to talk about brand love here? Well, before we get into the topic, let me tell you a little bit about my own story. My name is Eva, and I am currently, as you heard, a children YouTuber. I act as digital advisor for several startups and mentor several digital businesses, and I am a professor in different business schools. But this is pretty recent. I've dedicated almost my whole working career, 18 years, to the L'Oreal Group, working for different brands in different countries, but always in positions related to marketing, communications, and for the last 10 years, to digital transformation. As you may imagine, working in digital transformation in a multinational companies, I've gone through many different stages. I went through the days where no one really believed in e-commerce. No one really believed in online power, where it was really hard to try to convince general managers that the world out there was changing, that it was not only about GRPs and TV, that we as consumers were changing, and our business was forced to change or die. But I was also lucky enough to go through those days where digital transformation became the top priority at CEO level. And I had the chance to participate in wonderful e-commerce projects, data projects, changing completely our way of thinking about marketing and communication. But 2 years ago, I was offered a project that I could not refuse. I was offered to be a chief marketing and digital officer for a toy company. It's a very big toy company in Spain, but very small worldwide. And people usually ask me, why did you go from such a big company such as L'Oreal, to a much smaller and riskier sector, which is the toy industry? Basically, 2 reasons. One, because I like children. I like children content. And the second one, because for the first time in my career, I was offered not only the possibility to do again a digital transformation, but to actually create a product from scratch that I could never do in a multinational company. And I did create the best-selling toy last Christmas in Spain. And we'll discuss about that. And now is the million-dollar question. It's like, why after 20 years in the corporate world, you go and become a children YouTuber? Well, it is not some kind of inspiration that I just woke up one day and I said, hey, I'm going to just throw out through the window my whole career and I'm going to open a YouTube channel. No. Like most important professional decisions in life, there is always a personal reason behind. And my personal reason has a name, and her name is Jaisa. Jaisa is my older daughter. She's now 9 years old, and when she was 16 months old, she was diagnosed with a rare disease. It's a genetic syndrome that is called dupli-15 syndrome, and it affects differently to different kids. So it affects the way they learn, their motor skills, their speech, their social abilities. Once we found out, my husband and I started looking for therapies all over the world. And this search led us to the States, where a medical team trained us to become Jaisa's therapist. So we started a very intensive program with her. It was a program that we had to perform every day, 8 hours a day. It was a physical program. She had to run, for example, 1 mile a day. She had to crawl. She had to perform the brachiation ladder 30 times a day, doing this balance program, and so on and so on. So every afternoon, when I finished my job in L'Oreal, I would come back home and take over my husband, who is right here, and perform the program with Jaisa. But at the end of the day, she was a little girl. She was 3, 4, 5 years old, and she wanted to do what any other kids wanted to do, right? She wanted to play. So it was really hard to keep her motivated every single day. And the only way I found to keep her motivated was by telling her stories. So I told her hundreds of stories, thousands of stories, millions of made-up stories, and that's how I became a big children storyteller, basically. So one day, finally, all this work paid off, and data improved a lot, so she was ready to enter primary school. And then new challenges appeared, because it was very hard for her to stay in a table and pay attention and really understand face-to-face what you were trying to explain her. But I found out that she did learn a lot better when she was watching a YouTube video. And that kept me thinking. It's like, wow, no, she learns, she knows how to learn, but her way of learning is just different. So I remember one day that my husband and I had managed to leave my 2 girls at my mom's, and we, for the first time in so many years, had just rented a place up in the mountains in Madrid, in a very remote place. And we were driving there, and I talked to my husband, and I was like, hey, you know, what about if we would create our own YouTube channel? You know, a channel that she doesn't know it's her parents behind, but with all the messages that I know she is going to understand, with her favorite characters, and in a way that she would really learn something. But not only for her, we could just put it out there in the world, not only for special needs kids, but for anyone that could watch our content. We got to this hotel, and my husband, who is a firefighter, he has nothing to do with the digital world, he got pretty excited with the idea. So we got our laptop and started Googling how to open a YouTube channel. But it was a very remote place, so there was no internet connection. But we were already very excited about the idea, so we decided to stay in the place only for one night, go back home, and lost the other night. And, you know, at home, we started Googling how to open a YouTube channel, because I was myself in charge of all the YouTube channels in L'Oreal. But when you work in a multinational, you don't do the work yourself, right? You don't do the hands-on. You have beautiful agencies that do all the hard work for you. So I had no idea of how to do the hands-on. And my husband started to search, how would you create your own YouTube studio? So 3 weeks later, we created our own homemade studio at the basement, and we launched our first YouTube channel that was called The Strawberry Fairy. It's a made-up character. It's a fairy that was born without wings, and she couldn't fly like the other fairies, so she had to work very hard to find her talent, and over time, she became a big children's storyteller. And she has a magic wand. So with her wand, and you only listen to her voice and see her hands, she tells stories every week to children from all over the world. So we did this every Friday afternoon. We kept with our full-time jobs. And then last year, we decided to launch a second channel. And then we decided, hey, what about if we would translate them? You know, if Spanish-speaking kids like it, how about trying in English? English, big fail, too much content. Now, after 3-4 months, we shut it down. But then we tried in French, we tried in Italian, and it did work. So if any one of you want to translate me in Hebrew, you'd let me know at the end of the conference. So last year, in July, YouTube called us, and they said, hey, you guys, you're doing this in your free time. Your revenues through YouTube are very important already, so if you dedicated a little bit more time and you would do it a little bit more professionally, you could really create your own brands. And it really kept us thinking, and it was a very, very risky decision, because YouTube, if you guys work in this world, is really up and down going. So depending on YouTube is very risky. But we decided, hey, the moment is now, right? I don't know how many more years I could create content on YouTube, and I could work in any company, you know, tomorrow or after tomorrow. So the moment is now. Let's take the chance. So in January last year, I quit my job. And I started this project with my husband. So we launched a third channel, and we are escalating to different languages. And we have right now 950,000 subscribers and over 400 million views. So it's pretty, yeah. It's a hobby that is really turning into a business. And on the way, what have I learned, basically? And this takes me back to the first word that I was sharing with you. There's one more thing that I have to share with you. If you ever meet my girls, you have to promise us that you will never tell them that we are the Strawberry Fairy, because it's still confidential. And my little girl, when I put her down to sleep at night, she still looks at me in the eye, and she says, hey, Mom, do you think I would ever meet the Strawberry Fairy? I'm going to spend so much money in psychology treatments when she finds out. But yeah, love. What is what I've learned? Whether it was in YouTube, whether it was in the toy industry or L'Oreal, in this world, I've learned that we need to go beyond our products. That we as consumers, we don't want products anymore. We want stories, we want values, we want brands that really make us fall in love with. Because in this more and more digitalized world, where there are no entry barriers, anyone could make a product that is better than ours. Or even worse, anyone could make a product that is worse than ours, but be smarter than us in the way they market, in the way they're communicated, and wipe us out. So we need to go far beyond our product. And creating love brands is something that is not as easy, but fortunately today with the digital ecosystem, we do have a lot more tools. And we don't need to spend millions of euros or whatever in TV to really create a brand. But we have to keep in mind how to create it. And it's pretty simple, but sometimes brands do not keep all the things in mind. First thing of all, of course, you need to have a clear mission, a clear vision. What are your territories? What is your tone of voice? And what I find out in many cases is that if you ask different stakeholders in a company, sales department, customer service, marketing, PR, they would give you a totally different definition of the brand mission, which is a huge mistake, because then the messages that we as customers are getting are very different and inconsistent. So this is not a blah marketing. This is something that has to be really deep into all the stakeholders of the organization. So let's think that we already have that accomplished. We need to innovate, of course. And we need to innovate not only in products. We can innovate in services, right? Technology allows us today innovation in terms of services. I was really amazed when I read last year that L'Oreal had bought Modiface, which is an augmented reality company based in Canada. And they paid huge amount of money for it. For the first time in its more than 105 years of existence, L'Oreal has bought a company that is not a cosmetic company. It's a technological company. So that's a statement. These guys are really thinking, I want to keep on being the leader in beauty, and maybe this has not only to be with the product itself, but with the services that I'm going to be able to provide. Then we come to the third pillar, which is how do we communicate this innovation? I have a beautiful brand, I have a beautiful product. How do I communicate it? How do I do my marketing campaigns? And it's the same. I still find a lot of FMCG brands who are following the same classical rules, and that they take their TV spot and they put it exactly the same in online. And it's such a big mistake. We have so many other tools today to really tell stories. Outside, you had many different providers, right? With marketing automation, we really need to personalize our messages. It's not the same spot for you and for me. We have to tailor-make our communication, and there are a lot of beautiful and easy ways to do it today, right? But it requires, as a marketeer, a little bit more effort, right? Before, you just had to do your TV spot, your press, and your POS. And right now, you really have to think, you know, what is my customer journey? What does she like? What did he like? And how can I personalize my message? Because it's maybe the same product, but I have to communicate it differently for both persons, okay? And do not forget the day-to-day communication. Imagine in the toy industry where I was working. You know what is the percentage of your sales that you do on Christmas for a toy industry? It's 80% of the total, 80%. So imagine that you trust only on your Christmas campaigns, where all the manufacturers and the toy industry are putting their spots in Disney Channel and Boeing and Neos and Nickelodeon and you name it. It's really a lottery that you win. You really need to talk to the child or to the parents all year long, because otherwise you're going to be risking too much, risking too much. And it could be your social media, or it could be having content, you know, the famous inbound marketing, having good content in your website so that the consumers, you know, can find you when they are looking for a territory that you are in, Or for some businesses, it could make a lot of sense have own YouTube channels, which are strong, and they tell the story of the brand or whatever. But what about if we could go even farther? What about if we could go a step farther from love? If we could create desire, truly and real desire for our brand, for our product. And I had the chance to participate in 2 projects that were truly desire projects. People were lining up for the products. That's our dream, right? Having people lining up for our products. So the first case was the makeup brand called NYX. NYX is a makeup brand that was bought by the L'Oreal Group in 2014, and it was founded in 1999 in LA by a Korean woman that was crazy about makeup. Her name was Toni Ko. So I was, at that time, digital marketing director for the mass market division in Spain. So I was in charge of L'Oreal, Garnier, Maybelline, and so on. And I had under my responsibility millions of euros to spend in online. But I was given a challenge that I had never had in my life, because this brand had completely different rules. It was a brand that was going to be launched. We bought it in February, and we were going to open a first store in November. So it was a brand that was going to be based in own retail stores and eventually would have e-commerce, not in the first year, okay? So no mass market distribution, just own retail and e-commerce, and no paid media. And I came from a different model. L'Oréal Paris, everywhere, all stores, you can find it everywhere, and you spend tons of millions in awareness. Well, this was not like this. I could only do free awareness. So the only thing that they allowed me to do is to hire one social media manager. I hired a girl, and I brought her from a startup company. I didn't want anyone from inside L'Oréal. I needed someone that had like new ideas. So she was very good at community management. She had no idea of makeup. We trained her on makeup, and I told her, your challenge is to find influencers that are small, long-tail influencers, not the ones that are at the top that are going to ask you for money. You look for people that have smaller communities, very engaged communities, and that are crazy about makeup. And at that time, and it's only 5 years ago, there were no tools like today to really see all the communities and all the influencer marketing. It was a job that had to be done at that time very manually. So this girl, every day, she went online, she went on Instagram, she went on YouTube, and she went on different beauty blogs. And she was contacting directly girls that have small communities. And she did little trips all over Spain, organizing the Nixer nights. She would contact them and say, hey, you know, I'm going to Sevilla, and I'm going to organize this get-together with 10 other girls to present you the brand Nix. Would you like to come? She did that for 7 months. And we had no way to track if that was going to work out or not. It was literally like that. So the day before the opening, we didn't sleep at all, right? She sent me a video at 5 in the morning of a long, long line of young ladies standing from 5 in the morning until 10, 5 hours waiting for the opening. And it was a huge success. This really, really blew my mind out. Like, I totally learned a different way of doing marketing. Today, 5 years later, the brand is like the #3 brand in Spain, only having their own retail and their own e-commerce, and no paid media. So when I went to work for the toy industry, I said, could I repeat this? Because it's not easy. You don't always find the case. It's a lot easier to do it with a new brand than with an already established brand. I look at the portfolio of the brands that this toy company had, and they had a very high market share in the different categories that the toy industry have: nurturing dolls, fashion dolls, mini dolls, all those categories. But I saw there was still a gap within the baby dolls with different ingredients that the kids were asking for: collectionability, daring, more humor, things like that. So what I said is, what about if we create a different way of working? Usually, the way that you work in the toy industry is that marketing sends a brief to the toy designer develops the toy, and then marketing develops the communication, and then you put the product on shelf. And I said, let's do all together from the beginning. Okay? We're going to have salespeople, we're going to have communication agency, we're going to have the toy designers, and we're going to have myself in the same group from the very beginning, thinking about the story. We're not going to sell a baby doll. We're going to sell a story. It's going to be life for children. It's not going to be a piece of plastic that talks. No, it's going to be life. And that's what we did. We created a big, big story. And we actually started to create the content months ahead, too. We opened our own YouTube channel, and we got cooperations with 4 other YouTube channels to create stories about these naughty little babies, 4 babies that have different faces, that spoke differently, and that have different personalities. So when the time came that we put the product on shelf, this was September 7th. Amazon started to sell them. It was forbidden to sell before. Amazon started to sell the 6th. And they sold out all their units in just one afternoon. All the units that we thought that we were going to sell from September to December, we sold them in 6 weeks. And then we were in the news because Christmas was coming. And you had all parents looking like crazies in the stores to get one of these baby dolls, one of these bellies. The price of the belly was 26 euros. If you bought it in the black market, because somehow people bought them and sold them in the black market, you had to pay 300 euros to get one of these baby dolls. So it's crazy. It's crazy. The secret about it, it became #1 toy, and it put Famosa for the first time as a leader in the toy industry in Spain. And the secret was the storytelling. Storytelling and doing it ahead. And there's one more ingredient that we are seeing in all this presentation and that we cannot miss. And it's my third and last keyword, which is creativity. Creativity has to be in everything that we do today. And I was really pleased to see when I read, this famous article that LinkedIn sends out every year, where they say the top soft skills that companies are looking for today. The #1, creativity. Because in this data era, I experience myself companies that have tons of information, and they have no way to really translate that into actions that are creative enough, that provoke conversion, which is what we want. So it's creativity in the way we treat the data, creativity in the way we face a problem, we find a solution, we tell a story. That's got to be in everything we do. So as a wrap-up, what we've seen is that we need brands that go beyond their products. A lot of brands are a brand that knows how to innovate, but not only on product, but also on services. A lot of brand is a brand that listens and not shouts its message all the time. It's a brand that tries to create desire. It's a brand that personalizes their messages and don't send the same message to everybody. And it's a brand that uses creativity to reach, at the end, our ultimate goal, which is love. So thank you very much. Toda.
First of all, thanks again for joining us and for this amazing, inspiring presentation.
Thank you.
You totally won our love. Talking about love brand, So speaking about your presentation and the journey you've mentioned, tell us about the transformation from working in the beauty sector to working in the children's sector. What was the main switch you had to do?
There were mainly 3 very different things. The one thing is that in beauty, usually the shopper and the final consumer is the same person. But in toys, no. In toys, you have a dual target, because the shopper are parents or aunts or grandpas, and the consumer are children. So that's very different in terms of marketing campaigns. The second very important thing is about data. When you are dealing with older targets, you can do many things with data, right? You can retarget, you can do programmatic buying, you can do CRM. With children, the law is very, very strict, and you can know in no country around the world you can do anything with children data. So that means that storytelling plays a bigger role.
That's a big challenge.
That is a very big challenge. And the third one is actually about e-commerce, because beauty still in e-commerce is pretty small. So in Western Europe, only 6% of the online beauty sales are done through e-commerce. But in toys, it's more than 20%. And even in the US...
Huge difference.
Yeah, in the US, the big brick and mortar, Toys R Us, was bankrupt, basically, because, they say, of the online evolution.
Okay, so that's quite a challenge.
It's quite a challenge. yeah, it was quite a different challenge.
Okay, that's a fun one. We have a tradition to ask our international speaker about his own personal e-commerce experience. So, as we are all e-commerce customers, what is your favorite e-commerce website? What do you buy online?
What don't I buy online? That would be the question. I think the only things that I don't buy online are fresh food, and we just bought an electric car, and that's the only thing. So the rest, I buy a lot on Amazon. And the only thing that I don't buy in Amazon are usually clothes. And for that, one of my favorite destinations, it's not because I buy a lot on that, but I think they have a very, very good model, was actually Zara. I think they went online quite late, but when they did it, they got the experience very right.
And what do you appreciate most? I mean, is like the customer experience, is the shipping method maybe?
I think in the case of Inditex, is the all omni-channel experience. It's like you can try it at the store, but then get it shipped at home, or you can buy it at home, but return it in the store. So that omni-channel is really, really comfortable.
Okay, we're going to go back to the omni-channel afterwards. So let's dive into your time in L'Oreal. I mean, 18 years, that's super impressive. And I will sure kill for your beauty drawer.
Which is still very big.
I'm sure. So how was the transformation from a pure offline retail brand to an e-commerce empire?
L'Oreal has been doing e-commerce for a lot of years. But very honestly, it wasn't until 2015 when the group really made a public statement about its ambition. At that moment, I think our percentage was less than 4% in online. But they said, OK, by 2020, so this is next year, so it's pretty close, we want to achieve 20% of our turnover coming from e-commerce, whether it is direct e-commerce site or by doing cooperations with our e-retailers. So it was a big, big statement, and the whole company changed.
What is the biggest change that was made?
So the first one was in terms of organization. So changing first the mindset, because L'Oreal had always had people at the roots, or myself, like preaching up, right? That, hey, you know, we gotta go online. But, you know, the upper layers were not there yet. Once the CEO was there, it was very rapid. So we had a lot of internal training. We internalized capabilities. We didn't have e-commerce experts, so we had to hire a lot of people and a lot of new capabilities. So organization was the main one. And then a whole transformation on the marketing skills, because you were used to do a TV spot, but maybe not a digital campaign. So all the marketing communication has to...
Everything is changed.
Everything.
Okay. So that's interesting. It's a big challenge, and let's see what happens in 2020 with the market share.
See.
And many of L'Oreal's products require testing before purchasing. So how did you manage to overcome this barrier?
It is still a barrier because there will still be women and men that want to touch the product before buying it, okay? So if it's repurchase a product, that's no problem. You repurchase something online that you already like. So, or if it's a perfume, you just smell it at the store, you like it, you buy it online. But for mass market brands, for example, who don't even have L'Oréal Paris, sometimes you don't even have testers in the department store. So technology is a big opportunity here. So I remember years ago that we already launched a makeup mirror. So it's an app that you have in your phone, and that has a big, big technology behind. Because
many years ago,
yeah.
That sounds very innovative.
I know, but it was like 2015, which now is like long time ago. 4 years in digital is like dinosaur app.
Era.
but it was really, really amazing because it was pre-Snapchat. So it was an app that really was like a mirror, so you could move and you still saw yourself. You know, it followed it tracked perfectly your face, and you could see all the looks, and you could actually buy it online. So it was pretty.
That's probably was helpful. Yeah. So retro speaking, what was the key factor in your eyes to L'Oréal's success online?
Well, first, like having everyone on board. So, like, organization-wise, that was the main key ingredient. And then, regarding more specifically to e-commerce, L'Oréal has 36 brands in its portfolio. So the first thing was establishing different strategies for different brands. Because, for example, for a brand like L'Oréal Paris, which has very wide distribution, and the basket is very low, the average basket is quite, because prices are accessible. So the main issue was, let's develop first very good cooperations with our retailers. Let's become the preferred partner for Amazon, for the shopping malls, for Sephora, for all the beauty stores online, and then we will see if we develop our own e-boutique. For other brands, it's completely the opposite, right? So it really was a question of finding the right model for each of the brands.
For each and every brand, yeah. Okay, well, fascinating and, again, challenging.
Yeah.
Okay, so last but not least, from your rich experience, give us your best 2-3 tips to succeed in transforming from thinking offline to thinking omni-channel.
So I think the main challenge that companies have, the first one is the organization. So there is a mindset that has to be set. The second one is dealing smartly with data. I know that companies are having more and more data, but as we discussed today, having really...
You have to know what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the important things, too, is stopping the silos in the companies, because that is dead. The way that I explained to you how you would create a product, marketing does this, blah, 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 and then in the fast-changing times that we are living, that is not working anymore. So
yeah, you have to keep up with all the changes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was short, but totally inspiring and fascinating. So thanks again for taking part and joining us. And
Thank you.
It's your first time in Tel Aviv, so
and it
enjoy
won't be the last one.
For sure. So thank you so much, Eva.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.